This is Jed Disler, and welcome to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Paid subscribers get downloads at the start of each month and access to Zoom chats, and a new feature you will also get that will preview the content of upcoming episodes. You can find a link in the episode's description to my Substack page where you can subscribe. So please consider a subscription to help keep the Piano Maven afloat and in operation. On September 18th, 1990, the 70-year-old Swedish composer Claude Loyola Allgén was tragically burned to death as a fire swept through his home. Apparently, he had fallen asleep with a lit candle, which was the only source of power in his home. The composer had lived in poverty for many, many years, and the utilities company had shut off the electricity when he stopped paying the bills. As a consequence, many of Allgén's manuscript scores were destroyed, although a good number did survive the tragedy. Over the course of his 70 years, Allgén composed prolifically, and he often turned out works of great length and complexity. For example, there's an unaccompanied violin sonata that he wrote, I think, in 1989 that lasts around 2 hours and 40 minutes, and in fact, it's been recorded. By contrast, his largest solo piano opus that I'm aware of is a mere bagatelle, and because it clocks in at only around 49 minutes. And it is this work, the piano Fantasia, that I'm going to talk about on this episode. But let me talk about Allgén first. He was born in Calcutta, but raised in Sweden, and he basically operated most of his life outside of the proverbial box, fancying himself as a kind of outlier in the musical community. Now, there have been lots of composers who had a similar attitude, who did this by choice and by temperament. Think about Sarabji, for example, or Alan Pedersen, or my late friend Andrew Violette. And like some of these composers, Allgén had a reputation for eccentricity, as well as being difficult to deal with. And that partially explained the lack of recognition throughout most of his career, along with his general isolation from the musical mainstream. Anyway, a pianist named Mats Persson got wind of this Fantasia by Allgén, and he managed to get a copy of the score and to eventually meet Allgén in person. And Mats Persson devoted lots of time toward mastering the Fantasia. And in 1999, his commercial recording of the Fantasia appeared on a label called Alice Music Production, and it came with really extensive and valuable annotations. It was really quite a production and a very beautiful package in terms of its presentation. I actually did not receive this particular disc for review. I had heard about the Allgén Fantasia purely by chance, and of course I was intrigued. So I started doing deep research before I eventually managed to find a copy of this rare disc through a record store in Milan in Italy that specialized in rare and hard-to-find CDs and LPs, the store called La Bottega Discantica. Now, it was not cheap, I admit, but of course now you can find this recording on YouTube. Anyway, when I listened to Allgén's Fantasia for the first time, I couldn't decide if this big work was a hodgepodge of disconnected ideas or a cleverly ordered collage of sorts. And I still can't make up my mind. So I'm really curious what you will think about this work. So I've included a YouTube link to this recording that is accompanied by a scrolling score. When Mats Persson first looked at the score, his first thoughts basically were, oh my God, what a mess. You've got all of these stylistically diverse ideas flying all over the place, helter-skelter. There are rainstorms of dissonant counterpoint. And then all of a sudden you have a habanera that pops up out of nowhere, and it sounds not unlike that habanera from Bizet's opera Carmen. And then you find patches of obsessive repetition, for which purpose I have no clue. And there also are lyrical melodies from time to time that sound like they're being improvised by a barroom piano player at 3 a.m. Some sections of the Fantasia contain really ingenuous piano writing, but other parts sound as if Allgén had absolutely no clue about how to write effectively for the piano. You're going back and forth between music that's relatively clear and accessible, plus passages that just don't seem to make a lick of sense. So all I can say is that you give Claude Loyola Allgén's Fantasia a try. Maybe you'll get impatient after the first 5 or 10 minutes, as I first did. But really, try to make the attempt to tough it out for its 49-minute duration. I mean, you have no trouble sitting through mindless TV shows or wasting 49 minutes on social media looking through your Instagram or Facebook accounts. So, as such, I think you can probably give 49 minutes of your time over to experiencing this admittedly problematic yet genuinely fascinating work. This is Jed Disler, and you've been listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. And let me know what you think about the Allgén Fantasia. I'm very curious. And in the meantime, I look forward to being with you for our next episode.